Welcome to the deep dive. We know you want to get up to speed quickly.
That's the goal.
And today, we've got some interesting material practice questions for the AIX S2000-025 exam.
Right.
So our mission here isn't just about finding the right answers. It's about pulling out the core AIX system admin knowledge these questions point to.
Exactly. Think of it as a shortcut to understanding the really crucial concepts.
Because this exam, it's not trivial, is it? What are the specifics again?
Yeah, it's 45 questions. You need 32 to pass. You get 75 minutes. It's in English and costs about $100.
Okay, so there's a decent bit writing on it.
For sure. And understanding the why behind these questions is way more valuable than just memorizing answers for the test. It's about real-world admin skills.
All right, let's dive in then. Question 1. Which command is used to create a new volume group in AIX? Options. A, MKVG, B, CRVG, C, new VG, D, create EVI.
And the answer there is A, MKVG.
MKVG. Okay, so why this command? What's the basic idea behind volume groups in AIX storage?
Well, MKVG is fundamental. It takes your physical disks, your physical volumes, or PVs.
The actual hardware.
Right, the actual hard drives, or LUNs, and it groups them into what's called a volume group, a VG.
Okay.
Think of it like pooling your storage resources into one big container.
Ah, okay, like a
Yeah.
virtual pool.
Exactly. And from that VG, you then carve out logical volumes, LVs, which are what the OS actually uses for file systems and stuff.
So it's an abstraction layer, makes sense.
It's that essential first step for managing storage flexibly.
Got it. Okay, question 2. What is the function of the mktb command in AIX? Options. A, creates a snapshot of a logical volume. B, creates a system bootable backup. C, initializes a new file system. D, backs up only the etc. directory.
And the correct answer is B, it creates a system bootable backup.
A bootable backup. Why is MPSB so important for, say, system recovery?
Because it's your lifeline,
Yeah.
really. It doesn't just grab some files. It creates a complete bootable image of your main operating system volume group, the root VG.
The whole OS environment.
Everything. The OS files, your configurations, boot information, everything you need to restore the system if things go really wrong. Disaster recovery, system migration, it's key.
Right.
But, just having the MKSB isn't enough.
Ah, you actually need to know it works.
Exactly. You absolutely need to test your restore process regularly, simulate a recovery, make sure you can actually bring the system back online from that backup.
Good point. Don't wait for the disaster to find out your backup is bad.
Okay, question 3. What type of file system is JFS2 in AIX? Options. A, journaling file system. B, static file system. C, JSON-based file system. D, Java file system.
That's A, journaling file system.
Journaling. Okay, that sounds like it's about safety or integrity, right? What does that actually do for you?
It's all about protecting your data's consistency. With a journaling file system like JFS2, well, JFS2 is journaled file system version 2.
Right.
Before it actually writes changes to the main file system structure, the metadata changes. It first logs those intended changes in a special area, the journal, like a diary of operations.
Okay, so if your system crashes mid-operation, say power outage,
Yeah.
when it reboots, it looks at that journal. It can then safely complete any pending operations or roll back incomplete ones. This drastically reduces the risk of file system corruption.
Ah, so it can pick up where it left off cleanly.
Pretty much, yeah. It keeps things intact. Plus, JFS2 brought in other cool stuff like dynamic inode allocation, making it more efficient with metadata.
Nice. Okay, moving on to administration tools. Question 4. Which SMIT FastPath allows access to the user management menu? Options. A, SMIT users. B, SMIT user MGMT. C, SMITI user. D, SMIT user.
The answer here is C, SMITI user.
SMITI, not just SMIT. What's the deal with the extra T, and how does this whole SMIT thing make life easier?
Okay, so SMIT stands for System Management Interface Tool. It's basically a menu-driven interface for AIX.
Like a GUI, but text-based.
Sort of, yeah. It guides you through tasks. Instead of remembering complex commands and all their flags.
Which can be a lot.
Oh, yeah. You navigate menus, fill in fields. It builds and runs the commands for you.
Okay.
Now, SMITI is just the command you typically type to launch it.
Okay.
And these fast paths, like SMITI user, are shortcuts. They jump you directly into a specific SMIT menu, bypassing the top levels.
So SMITI user takes you straight to adding, deleting, changing user accounts.
Exactly. Saves you clicks, saves you time. Really handy.
I see that. Cool. Question 5. Which command displays the system error log in AIX? Options. A, syslogged. B, erpt. C, log check. D, DSGE.
That would be B, ERPT.
ERPT. So if my AIX box is acting weird, this is my first stop.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
ERPT is your window into system problems.
Hmm.
Hardware acting up, kernel issues, software errors. Often they'll log an entry.
And ERPT shows you those entries.
Right. It formats the entries from the AIX error log, give you timestamps, error codes, descriptions, maybe even suggests fixes. It's crucial for troubleshooting.
What are the other options, like syslog?
Well, syslog is typically the background daemon that manages logging, but ERPT is the command you use to read the specific AIX system error log. dmesc is more common on Linux for kernel messages. In AIX, ERPT is the main tool for this.
Got it. The dedicated AIX error report tool. Okay, let's switch to security. Question 6. In AIX, what is the role of RBAC, role-based access control? Options. A, allows users to log in as root. B, assigns roles and authorizations to restrict access to system resources. C, encrypts user data at rest. D, prevents login attempts after failed passwords.
The answer is B, assigns roles and authorizations to restrict access.
RBAC. How does that actually make a system more secure in practice?
It's about moving away from just giving people root access or very broad permissions. With RBAC, you define specific roles.
Like network admin or log viewer.
Exactly. And each role gets only the specific permissions, they call them authorizations, and AIX needed for that job. Maybe one role can change network settings, another can only read logs.
Okay.
Then you assign users to those roles. It enforces the principle of least privilege.
Meaning people only get the keys they absolutely need.
Precisely. Reduces the risk of mistakes, limits damage if an account is compromised.
Right.
It makes auditing much cleaner, too.
Makes sense. Granular control. So next up, question 7. How does AIX handle firmware updates for devices? Options. A, through apt or yum. B, using update view utility. C, by applying .rpm files using instalp. D, via the diag and update firmware utilities.
And the correct one is D, via diag and update firmware.
Firmware. That's the really low-level stuff baked into the hardware, right? Why these specific tools, diag and update firmware?
Yeah, firmware is critical. It's the code on the network card or the disk adapter, etc. Updating it fixes bugs, improves performance, sometimes patches security holes at the hardware level.
Okay.
AIX usually uses this two-step approach. Diag is the diagnostic tool. You can use it to check current firmware levels and sometimes initiate the update process.
And update firmware.
That's the utility that actually applies the new firmware code to the device.
Yeah.
The other options, apt yarp install. Those are for managing regular software packages, not the embedded hardware firmware.
Right. So diag checks and starts, update firmware does the actual update, a controlled process.
Exactly. You want to be careful when updating firmware.
Definitely. Okay, question 8. What is the effect of running boss boot A? Options. A, applies kernel updates. B, restarts the boot sequence. C, rebuilds the boot image on the default boot device. D, installs new device drivers.
The answer is C. It rebuilds the boot image on the default boot device.
Boss boot A rebuilds the boot image. When would I actually need to do that? What's a typical scenario?
Good question. So the boot image is like a mini OS that loads first, just to get the system hardware initialized enough to load the real AIX kernel and operating system.
The very first step in starting up.
Right. And you need to run boss boot A to rebuild this image whenever you make changes to components that are needed really early in the boot process.
Like what?
The most common examples are after you update the AIX kernel itself, or if you install or update drivers for critical devices, especially your boot disks.
Ah, so if the instructions for starting up change, you need to update the startup instructions themselves.
That's a great way to put it, yeah. If you don't run boss boot after those kinds of changes, the system might just fail to boot.
Yikes. Okay, pretty important command then. Question 9. Which of the following is a key benefit of enhanced journaled file system, JFS2, over JFS? Options. A, smaller inode size. B, better support for flash memory. C, support for access control lists, ACLs, and large file sizes. D, reduced logging overhead.
And the key benefit highlighted here is C, support for ACLs and large file sizes.
JFS2 again. We talked about journaling, but this asks about advantages over the older JFS. What's the big deal with ACLs and large file support?
Well, it reflects how needs evolved. JFS was good, but JFS2 brought major upgrades. Access control lists, ACLs let you set permissions much more precisely than the standard Unix user group other model.
More fine-grained control.
Much more. You can give specific rights to specific users or groups on individual files or directories, great for complex environments or sensitive data.
And the large files part.
JFS2 was designed to handle much larger individual files and overall file system sizes compared to JFS. Essential for modern applications, databases, big data, the kind of stuff common now.
Right, data sizes just keep growing, so JFS2 scales better.
Definitely. Those two ACLs for security and flexibility and large file system support for scale are the big differentiators.
Makes sense. All right, last question, number 10. What is a characteristic of a concurrent volume group in AIX? Options. A, it can only be activated on one node at a time. B, it is only used for backup operations. C, it supports read-write access from multiple nodes in a cluster. D, it cannot contain logical volumes with more than one copy.
The correct characteristic is C. It supports read-write access from multiple nodes in a cluster.
Concurrent volume group. The name kind of suggests simultaneous access. How does this fit into something like a high availability cluster like PowerHA?
Exactly. It's designed specifically for clustered environments like PowerHA. You have multiple AIX systems, multiple nodes working together.
Right, for redundancy or performance.
Uh-huh. A concurrent VG allows multiple of those nodes to access the same storage, the same volume group, and logical volumes at the same time, and crucially, with read and write permissions.
Ah, so they can all actively work with the same shared data.
Precisely. That's fundamental for clustered applications that need shared state or shared data. Option A is the opposite. That's a standard non-concurrent VG. B is wrong. It's for live data. D is also wrong. You can mirror LVs in a concurrent VG.
So it's the foundation for shared storage and HA setups, ensuring data is accessible even if one server node fails.
That's the core idea, yes. Essential for high availability.
So thinking about this range we just discussed, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? Considering the range of these questions, what aspects of AIX system administration do you find most critical in today's IT landscape, and what might be the next area of deeper exploration for you in mastering this powerful operating system?